So welcome back to the channel, and in this video we're going to take a look at drawing this in 2D, and we're going to later approach it using 3D. But before we get started, we're going to go ahead and figure out some basic math on this, and that's going to help us out when we go to create the isometric as well as the 2D view. So let's go ahead and jump in and get started. Okay, so welcome back. Before we get started, we can kind of figure out some of these dimensions on these type of drawings. And this is one of the things I like to do right before I get started on anything. And anytime you got circles involved, make sure that you can find where those centers at. Now in this drawing, I intentionally left off the location of the vertical component of where the centers are. What I'm meaning is that I left off the distance from here to here. And I did that on purpose just so we can figure that out, right? So if we look at here at the bottom dimension, we see that it is 50. So that should be simple enough that we can look at the bottom of this and go from the bottom of this to the center of here has to be 25, right? So that has to be half of the 50. And I'm looking at this just at the approach of from these outside circles. So I'm kind of approaching it from this outside circle because you can agree with me that the 50 here is nothing more than telling me that's the diameter that goes around here. So by me telling you that this is 50, actually this dimension here is kind of being a double dimension if you can think about it, right? Because if we know that a diameter is 50, then we should be able to figure out the radius here, which is 25. But let's take a look at the top one there that I originally started with. So what we have to first do is figure out how far is this going around, right? Well, luck has it that we have two ways of figuring this out. The first way of figuring this out is that we have the radius here. So if we have the radius here, we can simply tell that the diameter of that, so from this inside edge, and let me go ahead and switch over to a pen here, from this inside edge here, going all the way to this inside edge, has to be 40. And that's telling me that because all of that is coming from the radius is set to 20, right? Now, if I didn't know that, I can almost do the math, or I should be able to figure out the math of this. The first thing I need to do is figure out how thick it is from here to here, right? Luckily here at the bottom, we do have a radius that tells us that it's 2.5. So if we take that 2.5 and we double it, remember that's going to give us the diameter. So this length here that I just highlighted here is going to be 5. Likewise, the same length is here, right? So the thickness that's going around this whole thing inside of here, it should be 5. All right, so now that we have that figured out, we know that it's 5 coming down from here, right? So if we take a little bit of math and we say, hey, what's 95 minus our 50 is 45, right? So that'll tell me that the distance from this point to all the way up here to the top is 45, and then we will subtract that 5 from me, and then we should be able to figure out that this is 40 as well, right? So we are able to figure out both of those numbers that we need just by looking at the drawing. This is one of the things that I would highly recommend that you analyze any drawing before you get started, because sometimes in drawings, dimensions are missing. And you have to know either to ask somebody for that or know how to figure it out, or maybe you have to go to another reference book or something along that line. So anytime you're doing drafting, a lot of times you can even analyze the drawings and say, wait a minute, some don't look right here, or how do I figure that out? But make sure that you look at all the geometry that you can to figure that out, because likewise, I could have left this 50 dimension off and just said, hey, figure this out. And you're kind of looking at it, and I'd have had to tell you that, hey, this and this is symmetrical. And you can see that from the basic math, right? So if I tell you that from here, you know, this radius here is at 25, and then this radius here on the outside is at 25, well, I have to know to subtract that 5 from it. So if I get the radius of 25 on this outside one here, and the radius of 25 on the outside one here, right? Well, we know that if we take that and we add those two numbers together, it gives me 50. 50 times 2 is 100. But we also have to remember we have to take away this part here in the middle, right? Okay, so I think I've explained it kind of enough to where you can look at a basic simple drawing like this And I'm going to start doing this more in some of the other videos. So I'll try to dedicate some time with just going over the numbers just a little bit. And if you don't want to see the numbers part, I'll make sure I chapter these videos to where you can skip this breakdown. So with that being said, now we can jump over and create a brand new drawing here in AutoCAD, right? So let's go ahead and turn off my pen here, and then we'll start drafting. Okay, so this drawing was actually created here in AutoCAD. So the only thing I have to do now is just go ahead and come up here to the top and click the plus icon. Now right now you can see that my ribbon is set up and I'm in the annotation scale, but if you look a little bit deeper at my ribbon, you'll also see that it's set up in the 3D mode, right? So this is one of the things that might happen to you depending on what last drawing you created, whether it was 3D or 2D. You have to know how to switch back and forth between them. Easiest way of going back to your 2D drawing is going to be selecting the sprocket here at the bottom, or the settings, and then you would just go to drafting and annotations. Once you click on that, you're going to give it a little second and your ribbon should change. And then we're going to go ahead and do our normal stuff that we typically do. We'll go ahead and turn my ortho on, and we'll turn the grid off. You know, that's one of the things that by default I do like to have turned off. And you can set this up, and I will set that up in a later video of just showing you how to set up some things in AutoCAD. But there are some things that you can just set up and say, hey, I'm about tired of doing this every time I come to a video by turning off my grid, and then I have to come here and turn my ortho on, and then I have to set some of these certain things. If you want to be a little bit proactive of that, go ahead and search for templates. It's called a DWT file, right? So you set up that template file, and that template file is the one that determines how your drawings are going to start every time you hit the new button. So stay tuned for that one. I'll make sure I make a video of that, just doing some of these little catch up and setup things of that nature. And in that one I might go over how to basically set up some title blocks and some other stuff. So I'll just make it a good setup video just for you to create. All right, now we're ready to start the drafting. Okay, so when I first look at this drawing, right, and I'm going to switch back and forth between here and my drawing here at the top, I see that I already know where the center is. I also see that these two centers are in line with each other here, right? So if I go ahead and I create a circle that has a radius of 20, and then a circle around it that has a radius of 25, I can create that. Now, if we want to do a little bit more math, and here's one of those things, how far is it from here to here, right? So I can either show you that, or I can kind of let you figure that out, and it should be really kind of simple to you. If I can figure out that from here, and this radius is 25, right? So that tells me that this is at 25, and let's go ahead and put my pen back up and I'll do the math. And this is going to be one of those things that is super simple, right? So I do know the radius from here going straight down to here. Simple. That's going to be this number here, right? So I know that that radius is at 25. I also need to know how far is it from this center, and I'm just going to move this line out to this way. It's to here. And that number is given to us as well. It's sitting here at 20, right? So if I simply add those two numbers together, the distance from here going straight up to here should be 45. And let's make sure that we've done that right. So I'm going to turn my pen off here in a second, and I'm actually going to pull a dimension for you. Okay, so with doing that just simple math, let's take a look at the linear dimension here, and let's put a dimension from that center to this one, and surprise, surprise, that number do come out and equal 45 for us, right? So simple math here. That tells me that now I can create those circles, and I can also go ahead and put one at 45 below it. So I'm going to draw this one two separate ways, and I'll let you choose which way you prefer to do it, and that's going to take us a good bit on the drafting part. The isometric on this one shouldn't be that long, as well as doing the drafting part. So let's go ahead and jump back over here. And now we know that that distance is at 45, so I'm going to draw it twice for you. All right, so I'm going to start off with a circle center radius. Click here, give me a radius of 20. Let's go ahead and zoom out a little bit. Then we're going to come back to circle center radius. We're going to find the center here and go ahead and make this one 25. Okay, so here's the first way that you can do this. You can just simply use the copy command. Go ahead and select these two circles, hit enter. Remember that we just found out how far it is from one center to the other one, so I'll just click a base point here, come straight down and type in the distance of 45, right? And I should get those overlapping between that, right? So I do have these lines overlapping. Next thing I'll do is go ahead and use the line command. And I'm going to kind of do this one a little quick here. I'm just going to go from this quadrant, go out 22.5, go up 5, and then back to this quadrant. Exact same thing here on the bottom, right? So a line. Let's start from this bottom quadrant here. Let's go this direction, 22.5. Let's go up a distance of 5. And then go ahead and click on this quadrant here, right? Now the rest of this is just kind of trimming this and making it right. So let's go ahead and use the trim command. And then we know that it follows around, so I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of these lines here in the front, right? And if we're taking a look at this, and let's kind of follow this around going that direction, right? And I should have extended that, and you see that I've made a mistake here. Don't escape out of the command. Always just hold down the shift button and then click back on this one, and that's going to bring it back. And let me kind of move my cursor a little bit so you can see that line going back. Okay, so that's what I wanted to see. And then we're going to start trimming off these portions here. Okay, rather simple, easy, super quick, right? Another way that we can do this is also use the rotate command. And I'll show you that as well. Let's go ahead and put the finishing circles on here. I'll just use a 2-point circle. And that's going to allow me to go ahead and click that endpoint to this one. Likewise, we're here at the bottom. So just hit the enter button. Select 2P. And then select that endpoint to this endpoint. And then go ahead and trim off the rest of this, right? And one thing I do like about the trim command now is that it is super powerful because it puts an erase inside of this command. So I can trim. And then I can also delete lines that don't cross anything. All right, so that's one way that you can kind of create this S shape really super quick. Another way that you can do it is we're going to start off with the same method here. We're going to go back to our circle, center radius. I'll go ahead and place it here. Give me a radius of 20. Let's go ahead and place another circle, center radius, at this center. And then we're going to go ahead and make that one 25. We're going to do the exact same thing here on the top. I'm just going to draw a line from this quadrant going over this direction, 22.5. We're going to go up a distance of 5, and then we're going to come back here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and draw my circle that's located on here. So I'll just use a 2-point circle, and I'm clicking that endpoint to this one. All right, next I'm going to go ahead and draw a line right from this quadrant down to this quadrant. Okay. Let's go ahead and trim out the rest of this stuff that we don't need. So I'm just going to go to trim, and then I'll start trimming off these extra portions here as well as here. All right, so now I have two different ways that I can kind of create this other one here. I can either keep this circle or I can delete it. But since the circle is there, I'm going to go ahead and, not circle. That line is already there. I can either leave it there or delete it. Since it's already there, I'm going to go ahead and use it, but I'll undo it after I do this just to show you the other options. So if you're into those advanced commands, I'll show you how to do that as well. Okay, so the way that we can do this also is that we can take a look at the rotate command. Let's go ahead and select these objects, and I'm purposely not selecting this line here. Go ahead and hit the enter button. I'll go ahead and find this midpoint. Go ahead and click on it. Now make sure you select the copy function that's on your command line, and then type in the degrees that you want to rotate that. And it's going to be 180. Go ahead and hit the enter button, and then you can go ahead and delete that line there, right? So this is the exact same thing. I'm just going to undo back and then do it the other way as well. Okay, so if you didn't want to keep that line there, and this is one of those things, and I like to show you some other kind of running O-snaps and things of that nature, we're going to still use the rotate command. We're going to select our objects, which is here. Go ahead and hit enter. And now it's asking me for a base point. You know I have to get to that midpoint there. So if you shift and right click and choose mid between 2 points, go ahead and select that endpoint and then this one. And then you can select the copy function and then type in your 180. All right. Exact same solution on either one of these, right? So you see that no matter which way you approach this, you're going to create the exact same thing, right? All right, so that's going to do it for creating these front views, right? The side view is going to be super easy on this one. All we have to do is come to the construction line. I'll make it horizontal. I'm just going to select this endpoint as well as this one. I'm just going to kind of work my way up these two endpoints. Okay, let's draw a line. we're going to go straight down here. Just kind of move this over. Let's go ahead and use the offset command, or copy in this case. The thickness of my S shape here is going to be 15. Let's go ahead and offset this line over to here. And you can see that it is a little narrow. Let's go ahead and use the trim command, right? And then all I'm going to do with the trim command is just go right across here. Likewise here. Same here. And same here. Now this inside line is going to wind up being a hidden line, but I'm going to leave it there for right now. I zoom out. And then I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these long lines here, right? Okay. And since I use this one, I can go ahead and delete this shape here. I was just showing you that as another option. All right. Yeah, so it kind of looks like the word is. I just now realized that. Okay. Next, we're ready to create some isometrics, right? And remember, the first thing we need to do is when we're dealing with isometrics is go ahead and select this button here. That'll set us up in the ISO draft. I'm just going to use F5 in this command instead of going down here and selecting here at the bottom. But you're more than welcome to come down here and select. So I will still try to remember to tell you if I'm in ISO left, ISO right, or ISO top. But for this one, most of it is going to be in ISO left. So I can tell you that going into this, we're going to be in ISO left for most of this. Okay. Next, we need to go ahead and draw some isocircles, right? So we're going to type in EL, enter, I, enter. I'll click here, give it its radius, which is 20. Let's go back to the other one again. I select this center here. Oh, I'm sorry, hit escape, EL, enter, I, enter. Go ahead and find your center, which is located here. Go ahead and pull it out and give a preview of it. And it's going to be 25. Now, just like we figured out that magic number here in the front, we're going to use that number. We're going to go to copy, select here, go ahead and hit the enter button, click a base point here, come straight down and type in 45. Those should overlap just like they did when we was creating that. Escape out of the command. We're going to draw a line now, going directly from this center, going straight up. And the reason I'm doing this is because we don't have quadrants sitting at that intersection of where these two lines go ahead and cross, right? I'm just going to select this line here. And then I'm just going to make sure I kind of pull it down underneath it. Okay. Next, let's go ahead and draw our lines that go off of that. So we're going to start with the line command. Let's take a look at this intersection here. Come this direction, 22.5. Go up a distance of 5. And then you can go right to that intersection. Do the exact same thing here at the bottom. So line, enter. Go to that intersection, come back this direction, 22.5, enter, go up, 5, enter, and then come back this direction. All right, let's go ahead and put our isocircles in here. So ellipse, EL, enter, I, enter, and we're going to go to this midpoint and then select that endpoint. Likewise here on the bottom. So EL, enter, I, enter, find the midpoint, and then go ahead and place it at that top endpoint. Okay, let's go ahead and delete that line there as well as this one. All right, the rest of this should be some trimming, right? So let's go to the trim command, and then let's start working around this, right? So let's go ahead and work on our top part here. We know that all of this goes away as well as here, so we have it looking like that. Let's kind of work here at the bottom. We're going to trim to here. And then we're going to start working here on the back half, right? So we'll go ahead and trim off these portions here. We got a little extra one left over there, and then trim off this portion here. Okay. Let's go ahead and escape out of this command. We can delete this line here. We're going to finally switch to an ISO top. So I'm just going to hit F5 on my keyboard, and that's going to switch me to ISO top. Remember, you can always come down here at the bottom and select it there as well. Let's use the copy command, and I know some of this I won't need, but I'm going to copy it all. Go ahead and hit enter, pick a base point here, come this direction, and type in 15. Okay, so now we're starting to look at things that shouldn't show up, or that should, but I'm going to go ahead and put some other surface lines here just so we make sure we're in the right plane and we're going to trim the right stuff. So I'm just going to start with the line command, and I'm going to go from this quadrant going straight across to here. Escape out of that. I'm just going to hit the enter button on my keyboard here, and I'm just going to come back, and what I'm looking for here is another quadrant that's going to shoot across here, Let's escape out of here. We can do a line that goes across from that endpoint to this one. Really not needed, but I'm just going to put it there just because. All right, I'm going to do a line from this quadrant here, going straight across. Likewise, a line going straight across from this quadrant on the back, going straight across here. Okay, and those are going to be enough of my lines. I can also add another line kind of going right across at this endpoint here, going to that endpoint. Okay, all right, so the first thing I need to do is use the trim command, or you can use erase if you want to get rid of some of the big things. But I'm just going to use the trim command because it's going to, kind of alleviate, and it has both the delete function in them as well. Oh, while I'm looking up here, let me add one more line. I'm going to add a line right here to that, a line from that endpoint going across. Yeah. Looks so much better. Okay. Yep, I thought I was off on one of those endpoints. Let's do a line from that endpoint going straight across. Okay, perfect. All right, so let's go ahead and start working on doing our trimming. So I'm just going to go to the trim command, and we're going to work here at the very bottom, right? So I'm just going to trim off this circle here, and I'm just kind of walking this line back. And we just keep trimming off till we get to here. So we see that that comes around here. Now, what happens is that this line here, it comes all the way till you see it here. And then this is where it starts to vanish. I'm going to come around to here. And now we're not going to see this line actually anymore. So I'm just going to go ahead and keep trimming this one away until it gets to the top. This line here on the inside here, we're going to trim off here. And we're just going to work it around until it shows right below this view here, right? And if we take a quick look at it, I think we got it all. Let's go ahead and hit the escape button. I can delete that line now. And everything looks, really great in it, right? If I refer it to my 3D drawing that I have, this should look really super close to it. I think I can add like a little extra line here going across the top. And I'll show that to you. But these actually are not there. These are known as tangential lines, and they kind of show up on your 3D models, but in reality, they're not there just when that bend starts. Okay, so now that we have this part done, and we have our word is down here in the bottom here, it's kind of still throwing me off that it's saying is. I'm going to go ahead and turn off my isometric since we do have our isometric completed. Next, we can go ahead and start putting this on a title block, right? Let's go ahead and choose let's use an A size title block for this one. So I'm going to start off with a rectangle. So REC is the shortcut for rectangle. Go ahead and hit enter. Type in 0, 0. That's going to put it at the lower left, and the upper right should be at 11, 8.5. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is zoom into that rectangle that I just created. I'll use the offset command. Type in 0.25 and offset this to the inside. All right, and you should know that, kind of give me a heads up in the comments if you do know what size title block this is. I think I may have mentioned it already, but in your drafting profession, you're going to have to know the shortcut name for these. So instead of calling it a 11 by 8.5 or some of that nature, there's a specific name that you should call these. Okay, so before I do anything kind of crazy or outlandish, I'll go ahead and start setting up my layers here. So I'm just going to click on the layer property. And then we're going to set up some hidden layers and things of that nature. Now, another thing that I would do, and I'm just going to go ahead and put a bunch of layers in here that I would typically do. I would put a title block layer in here, and that's what I just short references as TB, right? Then I'll come in and we need to put a center layer. And we're going to use a hidden layer. And I'm just shortcutting these and just typing in HID and stuff of that nature, right? And it looks like I didn't get to name that one. I'll just call this one text. And we'll have one more just called dimension, right? So you can see that I have a bunch of different text or layers here that I've created. And then I'm going to start assigning some numbers to them, right? So with this one, with the title block one, let's go ahead and make it magenta. So that's going to be color number 8. With our dimensions, let's make it on color number 1. So I'm going to select here. It looks like my computer is running a little bit slower than what I'm running, but this will be color number 1. Oh, And I guess my color number 8, I thought color number 8 was, oh, sorry, color number 6 is magenta. There we go. Much better. Color number 1 is red. Let's leave our text at the current color that it is, which is that special color there. Color number 7. Let's go ahead and make our hidden lines. I tend to like to make those red as well, but we can make them color number 5 in this case. Let's go ahead and make them blue. And then our center one, let's go ahead and make it on the cyan color, so that'll be color number 4, right? All right, so here's all of my colors. Let's go ahead and assign the different line types to them. So the center one, we're going to go ahead and select the word continuous next to it, hit the load button, go down to where we got center 2, hit OK, select center 2, hit OK. The next one here, we have a hidden one. Go ahead and select the continue next to that one. Go ahead and hit the load button. Scroll down until you find the hidden one. Hidden 2, sorry. Hit OK. Select hidden 2, hit OK. And then the rest of them should be normal, right? Text is just text. Dimensions are dimensions, and title blocks here. So another one that I would add, or a couple of more, if we had some hatches, or if I had a phantom line, if I was going to cut a section. So those would be some other layers that you might want to consider. Okay, so these are all the layers that I'm going to use for this drawing. Let's go ahead and hit close on this. I'm going to select both of these rectangles, and I'm going to go ahead and put them on the title block layer. All right, just to give myself a little bit more further clarity here, I'll select this outside square here, or rectangle I should say. I'm going to come down to where the line types is over here in the properties, and then I'm just going to tell it that I want that to be on the center layer. Sorry, on the hidden layer. Okay, so now that I have everything set up the way it should be, let's go ahead and create a block out of that. So I'm just going to select the word create here. I should have pre-selected those two rectangles, but I didn't. I'm just going to call this TV. It's going to be my title block. I'm going to pick the base point, and I really don't have to, but this is if you selected it somewhere else. But my base point, you should always have it anytime you create a title block. Keep it at 0, 0, 0. It will save you life, and it's general practice for any time you're doing any kind of drafting. Let's go ahead and select the objects here. So I'm just going to select this icon here. I'll go ahead and select these two rectangles that I created, followed by the enter button. You should get a thumbnail here at the top. I'm going to allow exploding. You don't have to allow that. And then I'm going to also say, hey, scale this thing uniformly. Don't scale it where one side is longer than the other one and the other side. I want to keep this all consistent at being an 11 by 8.5, right? The units that I'm going to be using on this one will be inches. Go ahead and hit OK. And it should create this as a block. The benefit of having this as a block is that when I select it, it all groups together. And then when I right click and go to properties, then I can start figuring out ways to determine my scale factor, right? So now I can start playing with different numbers here that I can use. And you can see that since I told it to scale uniformly, I don't have to worry about doing a scale X or scale Y or scale Z in that matter. All I have to do is worry about one number here. So I could say, hey, let's go ahead and make this a scale of an 8. And then when I hit that, it's going to scale it up together as 8. Let's go ahead and play with a couple of more numbers here. And I think we can get away with a 12. Let's see, 12 might be still too small. Let's take a look at what 20 does. I think I should be able to get away with 20. Let's see what 20 does. Okay, let's escape out of here. I'm going to go ahead and move these shapes inside, right? So I'm just going to use the regular move command. Let's go ahead and select all of these objects, hit enter, pick a base point here, and let's turn off our ortho for a second. And my is fits up in there really nice. Okay. Now, anytime you have an isometric, it doesn't have to be the same size as this one. This is an incredibly big isometric, right? I'm going to scale this down, maybe even 0.5, because I'm not going to put any dimensions across this, right? So let's go ahead and use a scale. Let's put a window around it. Hit enter. Pick a base point, which is here. And then I'll just scale it down to 0.5. Go back to the move command. And then go ahead and place it here at the upper right corner. So I'm just going to move this. Pick a base point out here just so I got a little bit better control. Okay, so now you see that this is kind of what we would typically do, or we typically have for this. And I can move these around or do what I want to do with them. Now, as far as putting dimensions on, always start with your center lines and your center marks first. But before I do that, I need to tell AutoCAD that I've adjusted my scale factor, right? My scale factor is 20. At this point, you have to decide which method that you're going to use. And I like to break them down as calling it a standard method or an annotation. Since we're doing this in model space, we're not using paper space, so we only have these two options, so standard or annotation. We typically use annotation. Annotation is nice and easy. If I select this fly up and I select 20, it's easy. If I don't have that option, I can also do this a manual way. The first thing I always do is type in LTS, hit enter, set that number equal to whatever my scale factor is, which is 20 in this case. You should see your hidden lines or center lines or any kind of other lines approach and adjust themselves actually to the appropriate setting or what they should be. All right. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start adjusting to our center lines, right? So before I do that, I'm going to use the command called center layer. Go ahead and hit the enter button, and then I got to tell it what layer I want it to use. In this case, it's going to be called center. So CEN, hit enter. So that's set to that, right? Now I have to worry about, is the extension enough? So this is where you always want to do your first trial run on one of your dimensions. What I mean by that is you'll come to annotations, and then you're going to hit the center mark button, and then you're going to click on this one. And you can see if that extension is too low for you. And you can see in this case that extension is not long enough. So let's go ahead and hit the escape button. Let's go ahead and delete that. We're going to go and adjust the center extension. So center, C-E-N-T-E-R-E-X-E, enter. I like to set this number equal to either 3 or 5 if it's too small. So I'm just going to set it equal to 3, hit enter. Once I go back and I place this one on, you're going to see now that it is a little bit bigger and that the extension does extend out a little bit further. Okay, now we're ready to go ahead and start doing our dimensions, right? So the first thing I like to do with my dimensions is I'm going to tell it what layer that it needs to be on, and then I'll go and set up my dimension style. Remember that we set it up manually in this case, so we're using the standard method. If I go to standard, I'll go to modify. Same principles apply. I'm going to start from the right and work my way to the left. So once I hit the modify button, I'm going to start off on the primary units tab. I'm just going to say, hey, go ahead and suppress any of those trailing zeros. I don't want to see them. In the fit, if I'm using the standard option, I have to adjust this to whatever the scale factor is. In our case, it's going to be set to 20. Let's go ahead and adjust the text height. I will make it a little smaller on this one, so let's go ahead and make it 0.125. And then on my symbols and arrows, there's no need to adjust this one except for turn off those center marks since we already done that. So set this number equal to none, hit OK. And then we can verify that standard is our current one that we're using. Go ahead and hit the close button. And now we're ready to do our dimensions, right? So dimensions should be fairly easy and straightforward on this one. Just going to use a linear dimension. And I'm going to place it from this endpoint first to this endpoint. And then I'll come up. Now what I just guaranteed by selecting in that order is if I change this dimension or it gets too big or something, it's going to kick it out here to the right, right? All right, let's go ahead and put another linear dimension. Let's go from that endpoint here to that midpoint here. That gives me a number here. Okay. Let's go ahead and put a couple of more dimensions on this one. Let's put a linear going from this bottom endpoint. Let's do the centers on this one this time. So we're going to do it a little bit differently. So I'll put that dimension on. Then let's put another linear dimension from that center to this one. Let's go ahead and make sure that they're lined up. Okay. Put a couple of radius dimension on here. So radius. Let's go ahead and select the dimension here. I'll hit the enter button and then I'll put another dimension that's located here. Remember, we're going to go ahead and put 2 places on that one. This line here should be a hidden line, right? So let me go ahead and jump back to the Home tab, select here in the drop down, and choose it to set it to hidden. Now, another thing that I could have done, if you're sitting over here on the annotation and you don't want to go and change your ribbon, you can always select this line, do a right click, and then use the quick properties, and it's just going to come open with a short little quick dialog box. And from here, I can also select and tell it go to the hidden line. Okay, let's go ahead and finish putting a couple of dimensions on here. So I'm just going to use a linear dimension. And then I'm going to give an overall dimension of this, right? So from that endpoint to this one. And then I'll go ahead and select another linear dimension from, let's go from this endpoint to this one. And that way I know it'll kick out to the right. Let me just make sure that it's in line. Okay. We need to put another radius dimension here on the bottom. Now I can go ahead and put another dimension of this 22.5 here along the bottom just to make sure that it does say that consistently. So I'll do a linear dimension from this endpoint to this one. And then that way I don't have to put two places on that one, right? All right, so the last thing I need to do is I'm just going to use the edit command, ED for short, hit enter. I'll select on the 25. Find the end button on your keyboard, hit enter after that, type in two places. Let me turn my cap locks on. Another thing that you can also use is the word typical, TYP. But I like to go ahead and count them so that way if anybody's fabricating this, they will know that it's referring to two places. Okay, and I got one more to do. And then we should be done with this one and we can take a look and kind of look over our work. All right. All right, so now you can take a look at our drawing that we created here and you can see that it looks, you know, really good, right? We've created an isometric for it. We created the two views that we needed. We have a front view and a right side view in this case, and what I'm referring to is that this is the front view and this is the right side view. We kind of showed you how to make sure you set up some center lines and some hidden lines, so we did some layers in this one. So overall, this is a good all-around video that will definitely help you. Let me jump over to the other one just to see. Sometimes they put lines here and I can take a look. Okay, yeah, so it came out exactly almost like this video or like this 3D model here. And this is what I'm referring to as another tangential line. Strictly optional, strictly up to you on how you want to show those. But what you see in our drawing is fine enough for us. All right, so thank you for watching this one. The next time you see me after this video, I will be creating this using 3D AutoCAD. So if that's something that you look forward to, please stay tuned for that video. All right, so thank you for watching.